Hi everyone, I'd like to do a review of a documentary called Alone in the Wild. It is possibly the most powerful survival reality documentary I've ever seen. And it shows something you're not going to see in many others because it's so raw and brutal. And if you have a bug out bag and are thinking of bugging out to the wilderness, this is definitely something I would highly recommend you see, especially if you're planning to do the lone wolf approach of going out and trying to survive with a backpack full of gear out in the wilderness. This is something I would highly recommend you watch, because that is basically what this guy did. Ed Wardle, he didn't have very much survival training. He did consult a bear expert. He learned a few wild edibles, had some experience fishing and setting up traps to catch rabbits, and how to use a firearm. A backpack full of gear, and food rations as well. The goal was to survive for 3 months. He lasted 50 days up in Canada. And what makes this 3-part documentary so powerful is you watch him get completely destroyed physically, emotionally, and psychologically from the isolation, lack of food, and anxiety and stresses of trying to survive. He has a fishing rod and he tries to fish, but he can't really get enough fish to sustain himself. He is foraging as he goes, finding plants, but he can't get enough calories from doing that to keep himself alive. He ends up shooting 2 porcupines in the documentary, and there's a real difference between at the beginning, when he was just blown away that porcupines climb trees. He was like all shocked by it, and he kind of didn't want to shoot it. Then eventually he brought himself to shoot the porcupine and eat it. And at the end he just sees a porcupine, bang, doesn't care anymore because he's just starving to death. And you get to see him waste away, even though he has a gun, he's got snares out, he's fishing, he's foraging, and he has rations. And he is rationing supplies he brought. He's still withering away and just turning into a skeleton, becoming weak to the point where he hasn't got the physical strength to look after himself. He's getting cold too easily. He can't think clearly. He goes to stand up, he gets dizzy, he can't move around very much. And over the 50 days, I did not see him catch a single thing in any of his traps. And I think at the most he set out was up to 30. Caught nothing. He might have had a chance if he had the local indigenous knowledge of where are the areas that have the really good food supplies and where to go for food. If he had that local knowledge, he might have done better, especially if he had been allowed to hunt everything there. He was able to film moose. There was 2 moose, though they could have been the same moose. Would have to look very closely at their antlers, but a full-size moose, if he had been allowed to legally shoot that, he would have been a lot better off. There was also a caribou. Again, not legally allowed to shoot that. Would have been a lot better off. And there were bears. Now, if he had shot the bear, it could have charged, it could have killed him. And again, it could have came in after his food and ended up killing him. But, of course, bears are edible. Just ask Davy Crockett. But of course, not allowed to hunt the bear. Though it's probably better that he wasn't trying to sneak up on a bear, because that could have ended pretty badly. And even though he had a pre-made shelter of a tarpaulin that eventually started leaking when it wasn't completely strung up tight, and he had a hammock. He tried to make a lean-to twice. Well, didn't try. He did make lean-tos, which could not keep him dry. They were at the wrong angle. And so when it would rain, he would have to get back under his tarp. And that was where he was sleeping, in the hammock. So I'm a little confused as to why he felt the need to spend that massive amount of calories chopping down trees, set up a lean-to that he was just going to sit in but not sleeping. Then again, he was living his dream, which became a nightmare. It was one of his boyhood dreams to try and go out and live in the wilderness. And it quickly became a nightmare for him. I would highly recommend you go watch it. It is just brutal. How tortured and emotional he got from the isolation. And then you see how that was compounded by the fear of bears. And one of my favourite parts is...
Wait, did you see that?
See what?
Oh, never mind.
One of my favourite parts is when he's really lonely and he finds a friend. A friend named Bruce. Bruce is a moose. He's feeling really down and he finds an old moose skull and he takes it back to camp and he talks to it, and it's his little friend. Because he, spending a bit too much time out in the bush, he kind of needs someone to socialise.
Sounds like someone I know.
Sometimes when you're out in the bush way too long, you really wish you had someone to talk to. There's no one out there, so you know what? Make one! And it's just funny, and I really liked it, and yeah, it's definitely my favourite part is when he makes friends with the skull of an old moose. And it's kind of sweet and kind of funny. But I hope you'll track this little series down. It's not too hard to find, and I hope you watch it and enjoy it. Especially if you're hoping to do the whole lone wolf survival thing. Alright everyone, have a good one.